I wrote down the Emerald Knights again this time. But saying that, when you start talking percentages, I think we have two fabulous choices. I really do. I like the lower risk of water, frankly, at the Emerald Knights. I like the availability. In driving in town this morning, after being out of town, and coming off and seeing that spot, you know, it really makes it a gateway that we don't have now. And it puts it between a couple of cultural institutions. I think that gateway and the traffic, which can be a pro or con, but I tend to see as a major pro, is important to me. And I know as a library board, we've been really interested in having a central facility. You know, there's been talk about, well, why don't you do it, you know, stay at Westdale and keep it there, or, you know, and it's been important to this board that we have a central facility that has easy access for all people. You can't get a lot easier access when you're coming from different parts of town than coming right in on the interstate. I mean, it makes it very accessible for people. So I like the traffic. In visiting other libraries, the ones I've visited, and I'm sure that's not true for all of them, but the majority that I have seen, they haven't been right in the middle of the core. They've been a little on the outside of the core. They've been, so I don't see that as, you know, something that is tremendously important enough to make me to think that we need to consider that necessarily. But as I say, percentage-wise, you know, I'm pretty flexible, and I do think when we talk about parking, it needs to be adequate. I don't, you know, we talk about free parking, and maybe it needs to be free or maybe it doesn't, but I think that some service is important. I got to tell you, I think that's important to people.
Okay, Phyllis.
I'd agree with Susie. I think either site would work very well for the library, and we've heard all the reasons why. I guess that it sort of tips, the tip is very slight, but I'd have to say I would tip to the Gazette site, mostly for the reasons that have already been expressed. I do like the idea of being able to have some surface parking, and it looks like that's tenable. The cost of that particular site, I think, I'm hoping that there can be more negotiation on that, because I think that is a little bit of a negative factor when you balance it against the Emerald Knights. But actually, I think either site would work very well. And but I'd have to say that would be my first choice.
Okay. And for myself, the last meeting that we had, I came out of that meeting very torn between the Emerald Knights and the Gazette site. I mean, very close to 50-50. And as the time has approached closer, I mean, I look at this decision and I think, you know, 50 years from now, I mean, people are going to look back and say, you know, you were part of that decision, and what really drove you, okay? And for me, I look at it as, I have 3 kids, and these guys know that, but you don't. But I have 3 children, and I just think about, you know, taking my 3 children to the library. And I want my kids to come back here, and which site do I think gives a little bit of an edge that my children are going to come back and stay in Cedar Rapids. And when I think about the Gazette block and the downtown farmers market and the connection to the Green Square Park, I mean, that pushes me over the edge a bit to say the Gazette block, because I'm really thinking about the future generations and being a place that, you know, people want to come back and they see that connection. I mean, we've just heard so much from people about that connectivity to the park. I also think that it gives a little more security in terms of safety from flooding as compared to the True North site. I think its proximity with the art museum is strong. I mean, I like that that aspect as well. And I do some travel for work, and when I see, and I always take note of these different communities and what they do to create, you know, I always like to use the term gathering spaces, okay? And just came back from a trip yesterday, and in a 1 to 2 block area, 15 restaurants, okay? They have figured out how to do planning so that they can create gathering spaces so people come, spend money, increase the tax base, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, I view the Gazette block as providing that. I went with you too, Hillary, because I look at the Emerald Knights site and I think there's such great potential for building tax base on that block because it has such great presence. So part of me sees that as well. The other thing is just with the Emerald Knights block, I hesitate a bit because I think there's just enough busyness there. And when I want to go to the library and I want to take my 3 kids, you know, I want it to be rested, right? I don't want to feel like it's in a busy area. I mean, that you can go and you know you're going to have parking. And if you choose to go over to the park, you go over to the park. If you choose to walk somewhere else, you can walk somewhere else. And I do, probably different than, say, a year ago, when people talk about a walkable downtown and being a core downtown. I probably was maybe not as sensitive to that, probably a year ago. You guys, I really see that that is very, very important, okay? Having, you know, to have a core and have things in proximity to each other so that people can get there very easily. And that's where I think about those downtown farmers market and us sitting on the corner of the Gazette block. I mean, you bet people are going to walk into the library when that's happening. And that's the kind of synergy that I think is what a library is all about. There's more than one thing to do, and you can leverage it. So for me, I really did end up coming down on the Gazette block.